We should start through our lives. And I think we should just keep an eye on the viewers that should start to come in shortly. I think we need to have our I think we should have. Let's go to the first slide of the PowerPoint, please. Welcome to Be the First Step, because children really can't wait. I'm Dr. Laura Hanson.
And I'm Donna Anello, and we want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us at this time. So let's get started.
Look at that next slide, please. So we want to give you a little bit of background about myself. Many of you know me, and I think you know a lot of the things that I've been teaching over the years, but there is a journey, and I'm sure many of you have also been on a journey. So I'm just going to kind of give you a little background if you don't know it, and then we're going to move on from there. I had a typical chiropractic practice like most chiropractors do, and the thing that I noticed is that children were just coming in, and I felt like I didn't really know how to take care of them. I remember what it was like in school. I've had the opportunity to actually work at 2 chiropractic colleges, and the thing that has a tendency to happen is we get into the student clinic, and the only thing that we have is the background of the adults, and we automatically begin to funnel that same expectation onto the child because we just don't understand what may really be present in a child and how do we look at it. So I remember the first thing that I went after was through the ICA, the Pediatric Council, and I became a diplomate through the council. And then they asked me to teach neurology. And, you know, while I was very excited to be asked to talk, I was like, neurology is a really hard subject. So, you know, what am I going to do about that? So I found a really wonderful program that looked at all the primitive reflexes and really went into the background of how the nervous system actually gets wired up. And I have to tell you, excuse me, that is where my whole journey completely changed, because I had insight into how the nervous system actually got connected, and it changed everything. So then over time, just having as many kids as I've had come through my office, I mean, I'm now in practice 20 years, and I've had so many opportunities to do conferences and speak about neurology, and I've been able to really understand from the very beginning what this reflex component is and how it really plays a part even before sensory motor, even before we even anchor ourselves into developmental milestones. So it's a real key to understanding how the nervous system gets wired up. So that's a lot of the background to me. It's a lot of what I focus on now. But when I started in practice and really enjoyed the idea of teaching, I realized that chiropractors are extremely busy in their offices, and it would be great if you could really streamline what that information was. So that's what I've really been focused on the last 5 years, is to really streamline that information. Let's go to the next slide. So there's been a couple of situations over the past few years that I really want to touch base with you on. I am a chiropractor just like you, and I feel like we have one of the greatest tools in the world with the chiropractic adjustment. But I can remember one of the first little girls, maybe 15 years ago, that I put my hands on, and I couldn't understand. Well, why don't we go back to us for a second? I couldn't understand why she responded to the adjustment like she did. She got very startled. And I took a step back, and I was confused because I get adjusted, my kids get adjusted. Excuse me. And I couldn't understand why this child was responding the way that she was. So I really started to take a step back and go, okay, what's going on with her nervous system? And I have to say, my son was one of the most interesting cases for me. So he was 8 years old when I graduated, and he started having headaches really bad. And I adjusted him, but it didn't solve the headaches. So the headaches actually got worse. And I went to Life University. And at Life University, we had Dr. Fox teach us pathology. And of course, my mind ran first to pathology. And I had to slow down. I had to slow down. So I actually took him to a pediatric ophthalmologist and told him his birth history. And definitely, there was a trauma in his birth. He was born a conehead. And what had actually happened was he had an overstretched optic nerve of his left eye, which began to really be impacted as he became more school age. And there was a greater demand for that near-far vision. Okay, so that was one of the first situations that made me really step back and realize there's something different. There's something different about children. The other case, though, that I was talking about was that little girl. So there was an auditory component and a tactile. She didn't like somebody touching her neck. So what do we do as a chiropractor when we have a patient like that? So that's one of the things, after nearly 20 years of doing this, that if all it took was a chiropractic adjustment at this point in time for that little girl, she would change. All of the children that I've ever put my hands on with autism, ADD, ADHD, Asperger, OCD, PDD, any kind of label that you give them, if all it took was the adjustment, I promise you, I'd have the Nobel Prize. But what it did do for me is it made me take a step back, and it made me look at, for me, what I used was the subluxation complex. And many people have different views of that. My view was, okay, we have this complex. So there is a muscle component, there's a movement component, there is a tissue, histo component, there is a neuro component, and then there's a pathological component. So I always looked at it, well, here's this person with this label. Let me walk back. What window could I get in? And that's what really launched me to look at movement, look at muscles, look at nerve. But it's never to take away from the chiropractic adjustment at all. We have something so valuable. I don't know if you've heard, but my daughter has been in a serious car accident and has suffered a TBI. And your prayers I've been feeling everywhere, so thank you so much. And I am going to have to use my skills as never before. But I am so grateful for the experience that I've had, because I am going to have to take my daughter back to the beginning, back to where the brainstem was in control, and I'm going to have to move her forward. Now, I'm a mom too, so I'm not going to do it all alone. I've been really fortunate that Life University has reached out to me. We're also looking at Shepherd Center for a transfer over there. But I am a very knowledgeable woman, and I feel certain that I will be an active part of it. So I'm grateful for this experience, this journey that I've actually been on. I've been able to communicate with the doctors in such a way. For the first time in my life, I really feel like an equal, even though I'm wearing my mom hat in that room. But let's go back to the PowerPoint. There were two cases for me that really stood out that I wanted to share with you so that I could help you understand why it is so important to understand the development of children. Several years ago, a chiropractor came to me, and her baby was about 9 months old. And nothing prepared me for when she walked through the door. Her baby was gray. That baby was in pain. That baby was unable to eat. That baby was unable to lie down. Now, it's just as important to know, where does somebody need to be at that moment in time? I looked at her and I asked if the child had been evaluated by a medical doctor, and she said no. The baby had been fine up until about 6 months, and then this was a steady progression. I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable, so we talked a little bit longer. And after watching the baby and seeing the lifelessness that he was going through, I literally did. I told her that she had to take the baby to the emergency room. And I asked her to please call me. She had actually traveled to come and see me. For the next 24 hours, I was just in such heavy thought over this child. And she did not take my advice. The next day, she finally called me. And she had actually taken the baby out, doing some activities outside, and somebody else had performed an adjustment on the child. She traveled back home, and when she got home, she went to go get her baby out of the car, and the baby had passed away. Let's look at the next slide, please. Recently, I had a couple of chiropractors call me, and one had done a maneuver on the pregnant mom, who is a chiropractor, and her water broke, and it wasn't time for that water to break. She was hospitalized. There was an enormous amount of supplements and IV antibiotics, and there was so much going on, and the baby did not survive that one either. So I'm giving you two really, really serious stories, but I'm really trying to get your attention. Let's go to the next slide. This type of situations, I see them manifesting very often, too often. And I'm watching things on Facebook, and we are asking one another for ideas on management strategies. We are giving advice on people that we have no history on whatsoever. And in the pediatric population, we've got to be so much better than this. Let's go to the next slide. We've got to understand that at any time, someone could take the right to see children away from us. I don't know if you're aware of this, but especially since the injury to my daughter, my Facebook page has so many messages on it. The news is already over in Australia, but they also reached out to me simultaneously to say, can you help us? Because the government is taking pediatrics away from the Aussie doctors. And you may use insurance in your office, and maybe you're not getting paid on those children. Maybe you're giving your services away and just bringing that whole family in there. I don't want you to practice like that. Let's go to us now, please. We want to prepare you. Donna and I, we'll discuss our relationship in a minute. We have a much bigger mission. We want to be part of changing policy, because we really believe that children can't wait. And if we don't get to these children sooner than what we're doing, we are losing a generation. Right now, that number that used to be 1 in 66 has dropped down to 1 in 42. The CDC always says if you get these labels, that's it. You're destined to stay this way. We're losing a generation of people. And this is an opportunity. We are reaching out to the chiropractors first, because we believe that this is the profession that can make this change. So me being a chiropractor, of course, my heart is with my profession and my colleagues, but we've got to understand that children are not many adults. They have a completely different neurology than even a child at 8 years old. It's completely different. And if we don't understand it, then we cannot look at it, we cannot assess it, and we can't manage it. And therefore, they don't get results. They don't stay with you. They go somewhere else. And I don't believe that it's necessary to send this somewhere else. I believe that you are the best fit for these patients. We did learn nutrition. We did learn movement. We did learn our adjustment skills. We learned neurology. We learned histology. We learned every one of these subjects, and there's nowhere else that they need to go but you. So let's go to the next slide. This is how you can ask yourself, okay, do I have the skill for working with children? Now you can see this list that's up there. I'll read a couple, and then I want you just to ask yourself, do you know these things? What is creeping? How long should a child creep? When should a child be able to build a 10-block tower? Look at the rest of the questions. And we'll give you a couple of minutes, and then there's another slide of questions. These are the kinds of things that you need to know readily if you're going to look at the pediatric population. So let's look at the next slide. There's a few more on there. Can you identify 2 adaptive pediatric skills? Do you even know the 5 categories that you look at when you are assessing children? So this is the idea that helps us understand what is the information that we actually need in order to see kids and then make that right assessment. Let's go to the next slide. So when we look at this, when we understand what's going on with the children, it is really important to be able then to take that assessment and turn it into a management plan, but in a way that is suitable to help children be playful, grow, and learn, and live in a very, very natural environment. Now, piggybacking off of this too, we want to realize this isn't just about the child. It's also about helping couples plan for pregnancy. It's really important that we begin to understand that since I've been doing this, what I'm realizing is that I used to think if I could get to them early enough, we could change everything. Now I know I need to get to the parent. So why don't you come back to us now? So this journey that I've been on has what launched the IPI, the International Pediatric Institute. And some of you have heard me advertising that particular program. And it's designed to be 120 hours in order to give you a certification. Right now, I'm working through Texas Chiropractic College. They have sponsored the IPI program. So if people want to be able to get continuing ed credit, we just have to be able to apply in enough time, and we're able to do that. There'll be an in-house portion and an online portion, okay? Our other idea with doing the IPI was I need help. I get an abundance of calls. I get tons of emails, and I can't do it by myself. And I'm sure Donna feels the same way. And so we want to train you. We want to train you to be the pediatric expert in your community. And we will promote you that way. So that was all part of the IPI when I first got started. And then I met Donna. I met Donna a few months ago, and we've been meeting once a week for 3 or 4 months now. Really? Wow, 5 or 6 months. Okay, it really does. So about 5 or 6 months, and we've been designing and talking and seeing if we could build this relationship. So I want you to meet Donna, and I'd love for you to hear her story.
Okay, well, let's go to the next slide, please. I am a teacher, and I am proudly a preschool teacher. And for the past 11 years, I have focused on preschool age children. And during that time, I see a lot of emerging development, especially on children ages 1 through 5 over the course of this time. What was happening is that teachers, parents, and family members have been reaching out to me. They've been reaching out to me because something is not right with their child. And that's often what they'll say. Something is going on with my child. Let's go back to us, please. Something is going on with my child, and I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what to do, and my child's teacher doesn't know what to do about it. So I've been working, I've been in a private Christian preschool environment for those 10 years, and hearing this over and over again and seeing these children get passed along from 2 years old when things were first emerging. But there was no sense of urgency because the teachers weren't aware exactly what was happening. They were lacking the training to display the urgency that the parents needed to take some action. So this 2-year-old child would then go on to the 3-year-old classroom. Well, now the gap would be even greater because the curriculum is more rigid, and it requires the child to be able to do more things, have more skills. So still, the parents, maybe the child was getting by. What would happen? Now they would go on to the 4s. Well, the 4s, pre-K, is right before kindergarten. Right. So imagine the skills that a child needs to have. If you know the development of a 4-year-old, they need to recognize all the letters in their name, plus the letter sounds for the entire alphabet. They need to know numbers. They need to recognize numbers. They need to stack blocks. They need to know the shape of a triangle, square, circle, and on, and all the colors, 11 colors, plus all the Dolch words. Well, some of these children were missing these milestones consistently and had been for a few years. This is valuable, precious development time. Foundation. That's not happening. So what does happen instead? They need a resource. That's what the problem is. So let's go on to the next slide. Parents sometimes think mistakenly and through good intentions that their child will grow out of whatever's happening, or it's a phase or a stage of development or a personality thing, and that we'll just leave it alone, or wait and see, we'll watch, and something will change. Well, that doesn't happen. So what ultimately happens is the parent comes to me. So here we're looking at my interpretation of the parent's view. This is what's happening with that parent when they come to me, and their child has been in distress now for 2 years. And when they compare their child to the typically developing children in their class, even now they can recognize there's a gap there. So what happens? They come to me and they say, does my child have autism? What's going on? My child, is it too late? My child needs help, but I don't know what to do. And that sense of urgency, like, oh gosh, I heard about this 2 years ago, and now I need to hurry up and do something to help my child. So let's come back to us. So the next thing that happens is the conversation. So now we have to have the conversation with the caregiver, the parents. And what happens during that period of time is the parent comes to the realization that their child, as they envision them to be, the dreams that they had, the thoughts that they had about their child going on to go to the same university that they did and wearing the spirit wear. Well, maybe those things may not play out exactly the way that they'd anticipated. So the parents go through the stages of grief. And what they do is they mourn the loss of their typically developing child. And they're angry and they're frustrated. They're sad. Sometimes they're still in denial. They go through the stages until they arrive at acceptance. And at acceptance, then they can feel comfortable reaching out to get the help that they need. Sure. So this feeling, this overwhelming feeling of love to protect their child is what inhibits them from moving forward in some cases. And they don't know where to go. Right, they don't. Let's go to the next slide and the next slide. So the parent is in this place where they need to reach out for help, and they're sad and they're embarrassed, and now their child has a behavior issue, which precludes them from being involved in many of the activities they want to, even as a family, going over to another family's home, and their child has behavioral issues. Perhaps they hurt another child, or they hurt the family pet, or they're destructive, or they have feeding or eating issues. So all these things come into play as far as the social implications. And they're living in this place, but they don't know what to do. They're not getting direction from the school. They're not getting direction from the teachers, and they don't know what to do.
Well, you've got just the world too, their own stressors that they're going through, and they're just trying to hang on, aren't they?
They are. They are. They want, at this point, they want an answer.
Yes.
They want to help their child. They acknowledge something is wrong, and they want someone to come and pull them in and help them. Let's go to the next slide. So I formed the Olena Center to address this issue that I was seeing in the preschools by doing American Academy of Pediatric developmental milestone assessments, which include things like writing letters, writing numbers, cognitive thinking, gross and motor, language skills, social skills, to determine where the child left off.
Exactly.
So when testing 2, 3, or even 4-year-olds, it just becomes really apparent when you're testing a whole classroom or multiple classrooms of the same age children. Certain children are not meeting the milestones, and it's very clear at this point to see who they are.
Sure.
Next slide, please. So the progression that we see is we're called in to assess a child pre-diagnosis. Something is happening, but we don't know what it is yet. The parents don't know what it is, because there are concerns at school and there are concerns with social interactions. This child has been labeled. The desire of the teacher is often to help the child, but they don't know how to support the child because they don't understand. They're not educated. They're not aware. And the child gets to that place where they're feeling lonely. They don't have friends. That trickles back to the family not having friends. And you know, sometimes when I work with older children who have lived through this but didn't receive a diagnosis or help till much later, it's a sad story. And I recently had a mom tell me her son is 17 now, but he didn't get the help he needed because school pushed him, you know, along. He was very high functioning. He was able to get along. And what happened is mom said, my son is damaged. And she said, I'm damaged for him because I'm heartbroken for him. She said, imagine all the time that's gone by when he could have had help, but he didn't. So let me just tell you a little bit. You can come back to me. The CDC. The CDC is a wealth of information for statistics. They run all kinds of statistics for children with learning disabilities, developmental delays, autism, and so on. So in the year 2000, did you know that only 1 in 150 children was diagnosed with autism?
Wow.
You know what the number is now? 1 in 68. 1 in 6 children has a developmental delay. That is an impairment in either physical, language, or behavioral skills. And over 10% of children right now have ADHD.
Wow. It's amazing, isn't it?
So do you see your role? Do you see the chiropractic
Absolutely.
role?
We've got to get to these children as early as possible. As early as possible. So let's go. You could just stay on us. That's fine. So what's the goal? Our goal is to teach early intervention and early assessments so that we get in there and we really make a difference. And that's how Donna and I created Be the First Step. So go from advance 2 slides, please. So we created what's called Be the First Step because children really can't wait. And what our mission is to teach doctors, chiropractors, how to do developmental assessments because children are getting through the cracks. And when we were talking about this earlier, you really spoke very deeply on that. And I'd love for you to bring up those points again about the kids where, they kind of just get moved along. And those cracks, those are the gaps. That's what's being changed in their development, right?
Well, if you look at the system that's currently in place, the so you have your 2-year-old, your 3-year-old, your 4-year-old, then this child goes to kindergarten.
Right.
Well, kindergarten, the stressors related to curriculum are large. Now this child has to sit for a longer period of time, pay attention, write in a journal, know 181 Dolch words, participate in various activities, which requires you moving quickly from this to that, transitioning, playing out in the playground. And what happens? This child can't do it. This child can't function in that way.
Right.
So that child then is, special time, recess time, or other time is taken away from that child.
That's right.
Because they can't do that. So now we continue to fast forward. So now we get to maybe 4th grade. 4th grade is a very critical, very academic year.
Absolutely.
What happens? Child can't read. I had 2 calls in the past month from parents whose children are in this exact boat. One said, "This has been a throwaway year for me. My child is failing every subject in 4th grade."
4th grade.
In 4th grade. Okay. What happens? The school tries to put the child within their school system program. So you fill out an application, a lengthy application. The application, once it reaches them, it will take 4 to 6 weeks before the school system will contact the parent to say, "We're going to send someone into the school to observe your child." And then it could be, a very long time.
Another 4 to 6 weeks.
After that, before some type of services is started. And whatever the child is experiencing, they have to fit within the criteria that the school system considers acceptable for them to receive any type of service.
So they have to meet the checklist. If they don't meet the checklist, they don't get the resources.
Right.
The amount of time that it takes in order to get the ball rolling, that's literally creating another gap because children change.
They're developing all during this time.
All this time. And so if we just did another 3 months, they just had some development that was completely missed. So we're on a mission, and we have put together a plan that we would like to share with you tonight. I still have my IPI. Donna still has her Olena Center. But together we be the first step because children really can't wait. And we created a relationship. Donna is the education aspect, and I am the clinical aspect. And we want to bring both of these together. If we think about it, as chiropractors, we have a very difficult time getting into the school systems. Let's come back to us. I don't know about you, but when I first started in practice, that was one of my first targets was I want to go to the schools. I want to do scoliosis. I want to do backpack. I remember I had volunteered to help out with the eye screening that they did. And I'll never forget this little boy, 7th grade, comes up to the line and says, "I can't see. I've never been able to see. Just go ahead and fail me." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And of course, I was over there writing every note I could possibly think of. And I was literally told, "Stop writing so many notes. They don't care. Pass or fail them. That's all it is." Well, you guys, that was so long ago, too. We're just, decades are going by, and we're losing children. So we want to help you get connected, as we have, with your community. So the idea is that we would come in for 10 hours and we will train you. We will come in and teach you how to do a developmental assessment. We will go through many components of pediatric, obviously, on that clinical side. If you are just starting out, you may want help in pulling patients into your office. So that's possible too. You may be seasoned and have lots of cases that you just want some support with, that you would like to take it to the next level. That's good too. So either way, it works perfectly. But it's important to get the information, because then what we can do, we will either help you on the front side or the back side with an event, and we will introduce you as the pediatric expert in that community, because it's not easy to do that for yourself. So we will do it. Now, Donna's going to come in. I'm going to let her explain what she's going to do in your office, because this is just very exciting.
As you said, it is very difficult to get into the school system and to have them listen to you. The message that we have, the message that you as chiropractors have, is very important. It's vital. It's actually vital to capture these children and bring them into your offices so that they can get the intervention that they need
immediately
at the very youngest age, as soon as possible. So because I've been doing this for such a long time, and because I've been doing the Olena Center now for a while, I have developed the methods of reaching out to the schools. Often private schools are received this very favorably. That connection, to bridge that gap, because you need a bridge. You have what they need. They have the children that need the help. You have the methods that can help them. So how do we get the children to cross the bridge to get into your practice? And it comes from rapport. It comes from a variety of different ways that I have tried and tested, and I'm willing to share all that information to present yourselves, the office, your office, as a pediatric expert in the community, so that when the director of a preschool, the teacher comes in and says, I have a child, the first thing they think of is
your office.
They think of your office.
And we really think that it's not the doctor. We want you to you may have somebody already in your office that you think could be the face of your practice, and that's the way that you have to think about this. We have to develop the person that's going to be the face of your practice in the academic, the educational community.
And teach them the techniques, teach them the system, teach them the phraseology, the words to say, the things that are important to the schools have to be the things that you're offering, so that you can gain entree into those schools.
Absolutely. So that is the package of what we can bring to each and every one of you. So when I put the flyer out there, now we're getting ready to have a question and answer period, and you can absolutely submit your questions, and we're going to take a few of them live here in just a moment. So if you have a question, go ahead and type it in, and we'll be happy to address it. So when I launched the IPI, it was right before Donna and I started talking. And we really want to be a place of integrity. And I had offered 10 hours at $24.97. So we want to stand by that for people that are attending this webinar only. And that's where we would like to give you the phenomenal gift that we've been talking about, because after tonight, those prices are going to double, because there's two of us. So we are really looking forward to hosting this program, Be the First Step, in your office, and make you the pediatric and the office of relationship in your community. This is what we're trying to role model so much. I'm in healthcare, she's in education, and we brought it together. And it's all about relationship. Everything is about relationship.
It is completely about knowing the right places to go and building that rapport, building that relationship. It's through the methods that I've used over all these years. I feel like I've streamlined it down to specific action steps, which I'm happy to share, so that those children can find their way to you, so that they can find the help they need with their family.
Now, with this particular offer, we're only focusing on right now the 10-hour program. So there are other things that we have to complement this program that we would discuss with you at another time. So this is what we want to really emphasize, is that we're offering you 50% off of what we are going to do with Be the First Step. We would like for you to, if you have questions after the webinar, you can contact us on our email, which is bethefirststep2016@gmail.com. But if you have questions right now, we have a few more moments, and we'd be more than happy to entertain them. Let's see. Emily has one. Great. Are you saying after 10-hour session with you that you would consider someone as a pediatric expert in the community? Emily, I think that's a great question. So let's kind of decipher that. When we go out in front of the community, we want to tell them what you have just participated in. And it will be very intensive. And yes, it will raise your clinical awareness to a completely different level.
Because it builds on what they already have been trained to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've streamlined it so that you can be successful. Now that's why we did create some other complements to that. But you will have 10 hours of one-on-one. You know, Emily, when we go to a seminar, what we get sometimes, we get great information, but we get bits and pieces, right? So we don't get the opportunity to really dive into something. So the idea about us coming into your office is to focus exactly what you want to focus on. So you've already probably been putting some energy into that, and you put another 10 hours on top of that, you are certainly gaining your skills as an expert in pediatrics, and you're going after that. Now, the certification is really a way, 120 hours. I don't even know that that would be everything to really say that that's the only level of expertise, because I feel like I'm an ongoing learner.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about personalizing it. It's about giving you exactly what you need so that you can be successful, but really understand how neurology works so that as you practice every day in your office, you are building clinical skills that will be imperative for the children that you're going to take care of. And I think that was an excellent question. I hope I answered that for you. Do we have any other questions out there? Please feel free to type it in. We want to make this a little bit of an open forum and address anything that you would like to know about in making a decision. Donna and I have put a lot of time and effort into this, and we are very excited, but we wanted to do a very special program like we're doing this evening. We wanted to give people a wonderful financial package in order to take that first step.
And they can go to BeTheFirstStep.com, and for the next 48 hours, that this offer is
great.
available.
That's a good point.
Through BeTheFirstStep.com.
Yes, yes. And so if you don't have questions this evening, you know, I usually come up with a question or two after something has already broadcast. So please feel free to send us an email, and we'll be happy to address that with you. I don't think either one of us would mind if you needed a phone call too, because we realize that you're looking to make a decision, and we want to help you. We want to help you have the information that you need. So what we want to do is just make sure that you really understand the power behind what we're offering. This is an incredible opportunity to help you bridge a relationship with the school systems and gain the insight in how to be neurologically based in patient management. And I believe this really does have the opportunity to change the face of chiropractic. Let's see, we've got another. Charles writes us, neurological dysfunction is related to toxicity. Is that aspect of care addressed? Charles, great question. Yes, if you look on my personal website, drlaurahanson.com, you'll see one of the areas in the clinical part that we actually look at is we will go through not only the primitive reflexes, but I will spend quite a bit of time on biomedical. I do quite a bit of biomedical in my office. So we will look at the relationship of food sensitivities, the deficiencies, the MTHFR, the COMT mutations. You want to, there's a progression when you're dealing with this population for safety. And that's the other thing that we really bring with this. You have to understand, we've been doing this a very long time. You have to be careful with children. You have to do it slowly. Mm-hmm. So the idea is, let's learn how the physiology works. What's the best way to go in there? What's the progression? But yes, we will go over labs. We will go over all kinds of different recommendations and how to handle those types of protocols. So that was a great question, Charles. Marie asks, I'm looking forward to welcoming you to Ireland. Marie, it's so great. I'm so glad that you're on, and we're looking forward to coming to Ireland. We're really looking forward to coming to Ireland. So we've really enjoyed our time with you. We know your time is precious, and if you don't have any other questions for us this evening, we'll wrap it up so that you can get a little bit more time to yourself. You want to add anything?
I think we're good. Well, what I just want to express for a final time is children really can't wait, and that's the mission. That's the mission that we're on. We're trying to connect the children who need your services to you. That's what we're trying to do.
Yes, and that is wonderful, especially like if you're new in practice. We could actually do an event before we get started and discuss with the community what transformation your practice is going through.
And that's part of the educational component that we bring with us, is doing that research in your community for what's going on in education. What are the systems? What are the schools?
What are the resources?
What are the resources? Mm-hmm. Like, for example, in this area where we are, there's over 700 preschools in this greater Atlanta area. That's a lot of schools that need to be reached. That's a lot of children that need to be reached.
Absolutely. So we can have an event before we even get started, and we can have a call to sign up, because we have 2 pediatric experts in the area that are working with the doctor in order to bring this office into the same level of care that we have. And we will sign patients up at the event, and then they can be part of our hands-on component of our 10 hours. So we've put together lots of wonderful ideas, but it's very personal. It's about your needs. And as we said, we're reaching out to the chiropractic profession first, because I'm a chiropractor and you're my colleagues, and I really believe that this is where the best work can possibly be done. So we thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And remember, be the first step, because
children really can't wait.
Have a great night.
Good night.